Hey, how you doing? So, have you ever found yourself sat watching a film, or you've just finished a film and you thought, I've been holding my breath during moments in this film? Doesn't happen a lot. It happened while I was watching a film recently, Rebel Ridge, and I was like, this is strange. This reminds me of the way I felt during moments of Blue Ruin and Green Room. And obviously, all made by the same director, Jeremy Saulnier. And I thought, how does he do it? Because a lot of the things that he does are not multi-million pound effects. They are well-crafted moments, and I'm going to take you through them. Okay, so it's not because of jump scares, which you might certain moments, certainly in Green Room, you might think there's jump scare moments, but it's not because of the jump scares. This is not the feeling of dread that he creates in his films, obviously with other collaborators. It's not because of the loud music. In fact, the exact opposite, I'll explain. Or monsters. There are monsters, human beings who create or behave monstrously, but there are no monsters. So it's because you know something is going to happen. You know something is going to happen. So you just don't know when. So another thing about it is you don't know how bad it's going to be. So that feeling, that tightening in the chest, that's dread. And I don't think there's many. There are definitely some, but there are not many who do it quite as well as Jeremy Saulnier. Now, he doesn't go for obvious horror. He doesn't use familiar beats or cheap tricks. He builds dread slowly. Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But it's organically. It's a bit like a bruise spreading under the skin and getting bigger. So, Blue Ruin, Green Room, Rebel Ridge, we're going to talk about those. Very different on the surface, but they're all pressure cookers. This is what I was trying to think of when I was writing this earlier on. I was like, how would I describe it? Pressure cooker. And that pressure is the key to everything. So let's break down exactly how he does it. The unease that crawls up your spine, it doesn't leave. So the first thing he does, the most important thing, is he really grounds the stories with ordinary people. He makes it very clear that they do boring things, but then he changes the situation and he makes it extraordinary. So let's start with the characters. So one of his signatures is the protagonists are not prepared for what's coming. And this isn't going to be massively spoiler filled. But I am going to talk about some of these films. So if you haven't seen the three films particularly that I'm going to talk about, I would suggest watching them. I don't think I'm going to ruin them, ruin them, but I am going to be talking about some of the characters and some of the things that happen, but not in a way that I think will ruin the film, I promise. Now, they're not prepared for what's going to happen. Things hit them, literally. If you've seen Rebel Ridge recently, then you will know where I'm coming from, the beginning of the film. Now, they're not hit men. Like, it doesn't find out that this person has a particular set of skills. They're not cops that have been programmed and they hear a few words and suddenly they become, amazing fighters with these skills that are just unlocked within them. The people have the skills they have because of the way they are as normal people. And they are people. So Blue Ruin, Macon Blair plays, is it Macon or Mason? I've never heard it said out loud, I don't think. I've listened to things. I have heard it said out loud. I've listened to documentaries. I've been watching, can't see there, but I've been watching behind the scenes things, and I just can't remember. Anyway, he plays Dwight, a man who looks like he can barely do anything. He lives in a rusted car. He's eating out of bins, and then he commits a murder. So just like that, you're in a revenge story, but it's not sleek. It's not a hitman, well planned. This is where he forgets to use the gun, how to use the gun. This is where he gets hurt and panics. This is where, when he does get hurt, those wounds don't go away, which we're sort of used to happening in films. So it's the same in Green Room. The wounds don't go away. Certainly, you can think of certain scenes, can't you? It's a punk band, 4 broke kids finishing off their tour. They end up playing a show in a neo-Nazi bar, as you do, in the middle of nowhere. The only thing that might take you out of it is seeing Patrick Stewart's face. I don't know. Wrong place, wrong time, but he's very different in this. And suddenly they're fighting for their lives. So again, they're not fighters. They're scared. They're untrained. They don't become superheroes. They just try to survive. So it's about the will to survive, which we can all identify with, because we'd like to think that we have this drive within us to do something if we were threatened. And that is what makes it 10 times scarier, because the moment you relate to them, you're in that nightmare. You're in it. So we're in Green Room. We're in Dwight's world in Blue Ruin. We're in Rebel Ridge. We know what's happening to our lead in there. Okay, so the second thing that he does so well to build dread: violence that hurts. Okay, now you're like, oh, well, doesn't violence hurt? How many times do people just punch in films and it just bounces off them because they're super tough? But let's talk violence, okay? Because Saulnier doesn't do action scenes, he does violence. So it's raw, it's ugly, it's fast, it doesn't look cool, but it looks bloody painful. So in Green Room, there's a moment where a character gets their arm hacked up. It's not cinematic, it's not slow motion, it's chaos, it's screaming, it's blood spurting, it's people freaking out, because that's what would happen. And because that's what real violence looks like. Messy, confusing, and loud. Now, in Rebel Ridge, when the hits come, they are fast and they don't give you time to process. But it makes you lock into what's happening. How many films do you watch recently or in the last 10 years where you're watching so much punch, kick? You're watching like punching kicks that you switch off from it. There's nothing creative or interesting or even engaging. There was somebody talking recently about falling to sleep in the cinema. I think it was film critic Amy Nicholson. She was just saying there was so much visually that she couldn't focus on it. And I think that is definitely the way a lot of us have gone with certain things. But something like Rebel Ridge, it doesn't work like that. So the violence isn't like violence and then, that felt good. There's no triumphant music. There's no catharsis there. There's aftermath. There's a result of what happens. Usually pain, confusion, sometimes death. And it's not thrilling. It is not a thrilling, might call some of the films might get classed as thrillers, but it's not thrilling in the exciting way of being thrilled. Not a cheap thrill. You walk away feeling disturbed, and that's the point, okay? Because dread isn't about what happens, it's about what could happen, making you feel that this is real, which is hard without it being a documentary. So, or a found footage where you're first person. This isn't that. So you can't. The next thing, the third thing that I noticed about how he builds dread and how he does it so well is unpredictability and chaos. So one of the most unnerving things about his films is you can't predict anything. Some of the characters, you expect them to be incredible fighters, highly trained, just start popping off and killing people, and they don't. Characters you think will make it, you get to know, dead. Characters who seem small, physically, emotionally, they don't look like movie stars, they explode into action. They have more, or at least have a bigger part in the film than you think. Plot points you think are leading somewhere, they vanish. But it's because there's a reason for that. It's not just, it's not poor filmmaking. It's just that sometimes people intersect with other people who have nothing to do with the situation that you're in. As in life, you will bump into someone today who is not intersecting in your life a lot. But please, you're not the main character, okay? I'm not the main character. Neither are you. We're all here together. So let's have a think. So he doesn't follow standard structure. There's no clear midpoint. There's no heroic arc. There's no redemption moment. The chaos keeps you off balance, and then when you're off balance, you're vulnerable. So Rebel Ridge, the first 20 minutes is like slow burn, domestic drama. He's helping someone. Tension is building. There's a lot of empty spaces, which really help, for me, builds a lot of the tension as well. And then the tone flips. It detonates. There's not a twist in the traditional sense. It's like shifting sideways. So the moment when something familiar becomes hostile, that is his trademark. Okay, that is what he does so well. So sound and silence. Now, this isn't about getting Ludwig Göransson or John Williams or someone to perfectly craft you a soundtrack that is all the way through the film. This is not that. This is sound and silence, okay, that does it. So what's more powerful than a good soundtrack? Silence. He uses the sound design surgically. He uses it, he lets scenes breathe. He lets the absence of music do the heavy lifting. There'll be a really long take, no music, just footsteps or wind or breathing, and you're waiting for the scare, you're waiting for the release. And when it comes, it's not a big boom. It's casually, quietly, or five things at once. Because real dread doesn't need violins. It needs quiet tension. And Saulnier knows how to do that better than most. And I didn't even realize what a big fan I was of his until I watched 3 of his movies over a period of time and realized the feeling of dread. And that is my genuine reason for making this video, which I think is hopefully a compliment. So the 5th one, claustrophobia. Okay, green room. So let's talk space or lack of it. And this is what makes a great filmmaker for me. You could be a great writer, an absolute great writer, somebody like, let's say, Stuart Gordon, or a great writer, you know, but it's how they use, it doesn't necessarily make them a great director. Stuart Gordon was really great at using space, and I'll explain why. Is because of his background, I believe, in theatre and using the stage in such creative ways. Well, Saulnier, claustrophobia, even in open space. Wow, how does he do it? So, the characters are trapped in green room, makes sense. A locked room, surrounded by skinheads, no way out. It's physical claustrophobia, but it's emotional. No one trusts anyone. Everyone's scared. The conversations are dangerous. Now, in Rebel Ridge, everything opens up, but it feels like a trap. It feels like within that area, that police department, they own it. They own every blade of grass. There are forests, there are roads, there's houses, but no one to help because the law does not work. So the isolation isn't about walls, it's about the systems. So the moment he comes over that border into that area, he's trapped. Just like they're trapped in green room. That's pretty amazing. So you can be outside and still be totally trapped. It's the kind of claustrophobia that builds dread because it tells you escape isn't unlikely. It doesn't seem unlikely. It's impossible. And maybe, you know, even some of the endings, did they let him off the hook? I don't know. Maybe they do let us off the hook a little bit. That leads us nicely onto the 6th point, the system as the villain. Okay, so there's something Saulnier does that leans into this, especially in Rebel Ridge, which is the most recent one and the most recent one I watched. Is the villain isn't a person, it's a system. So it could be a corrupt sheriff or a lawyer who smiles but screws you over. It could be someone you definitely think is on your side who isn't. A courtroom that doesn't care. And it might just be that somebody doesn't care. It's not that they're actively doing something about you, because most people are actively not trying it out to get you. Most people just don't care. And sometimes that's even worse because maybe something's already been written and you weren't part of it. And like a narrative has been written in that area and he wasn't part of it. So he doesn't give you this big bad guy with a big monologue, which I think has its place, but we've seen it so many times. He gives you lots of small injustices, small betrayals, and just bureaucracy. Like, I've never felt so much dread about somebody faxing something than I have in Rebel Ridge. So, and that's terrifying because it feels familiar. If you're trying to do something very quickly without someone else seeing it, there is a way of doing that that's very quick and nobody notices it, and it doesn't play off with any emotional or any stress. And then there's a way where it does. So in this, it's familiar. It's real. You're not just fighting to stay alive. You're fighting to be seen by somebody. You're fighting to be heard. You're fighting to be believed. And often in these situations, we know they lose. People lose in those situations. So the seventh thing, which ties into that reality, is there is no easy morality. So there's no clean line between good and evil in these films. Yes, Dwight is sympathetic in Blue Room, but he does some bad stuff. Pat in Green Room wants to protect his band, but he's also really selfish and scared. And in Rebel Ridge, you're not 100% sure. You spend half the film thinking, who is this guy? What is he doing? I don't ever think, is he the villain? I kind of get the feeling that we're going to be following him and we want him to succeed. However, we find out more about him, and we don't find out he's like a killing machine who's been programmed by the army. We actually find out something that's much more interesting than that. Is he something in between? Like, has he got a darker side to him? We're wondering. So he doesn't deal in justice and giving justice. He deals in truth more in these films, and truth sometimes is messy. So you can be a drug addict and a good person, like in his films. And that might sound, well, yeah, of course, like people make choices in life and do things they wish they hadn't have done and go down these paths. We've all know people like that. But in this, it's a movie, and he's showing us that doesn't happen a lot. It really doesn't. Because the truth is messy. And I also think it's brilliant that he's not sort of talking down to the audience by just making everything so blatantly clear. So wrapping up, why does this type of dread stick and others are forgettable? So what's my sort of takeaway from this? So he doesn't scare you with monsters, he scares you with possibility, with silence, vulnerability, with the idea that violence doesn't always have a reason. And that is really scary. That is, if you've ever lived or been around people who are violent, they're not like the violent people in movies. They do things because, and often to people who do not deserve it, who were not expecting it. And that's what these films mirror. So his dread isn't flashy, it's quiet, it's creeping, it's real. And once it gets in your head, it doesn't let go. So I'm interested in your thoughts, particularly on these three films. I hope I've kind of explained it in a way that is super clear. Because I didn't realize these common themes, or the common theme of me feeling a certain way. Like, because I didn't revisit Green Room. I think I've watched it twice. I've watched Blue Room once. They're uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And it was just watching Rebel Ridge, and I was, how music can take you back to a moment. Watching that film took me back to watching the others, and I was just like, what is it that he does? So I started listening to him talk and studying and reading about him. And yeah, it's not like he's my favorite filmmaker, but I just wanted to kind of work out how he creates this dread, because not everyone can do it. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so if you've seen any of those three films and you've got any thoughts of them, feel free to put it in the comments, and or in the chat if you're watching in the chat now. So yeah, just give me a little bit of feedback if you like this kind of essay that I've done and you've enjoyed it. let me know and I'll do more. If you watch it and you watch it for more than 15 seconds and I get a view for it, then that adds up. And then I go, oh, well, people are interested in hearing this. If you're not, I probably won't continue. I probably say that quite a lot. So yeah, I'd recommend all three of the films, maybe not all in a marathon. They're not ones like I would recommend watching Basket Case 1, 2, and 3 back to back. That'd be awesome. So much fun. These three, you'd be in bits by the end of them. So maybe don't do that. But yeah, and just to reiterate, there is some great music in there, and the sparsity of music is important as well. But there is some great music in there, some sort of echoey, groaning sort of music that works really well too. That definitely adds to that. I didn't mention too much because I really wanted to focus on the silence of it as well. So I hope you've got something out of that. It feels like being back studying film again when I do things like this, and I do enjoy that. I do really enjoy doing it because it's been a long time, 20 plus years maybe since I did that, and yeah, this has been fun. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. If you've watched all the way to the end, you are an absolute effing legend. So, Jeremy Saulnier, Master of Dread. Agree? Disagree? Let me know. I'll speak to you soon. Bye now.